welcome to Still Buffering, a sister's guide to teens through the ages. I am Rileigh Smurl.
I'm Sydnee McElroy.
And I'm Taylor Smurl.
Sisters, the spoopy season is upon us.
Yay.
It's spoopy.
It's feeling...
It's my favorite season.
I know, it's your very favorite pumpkin-scented spoopy season.
Not even fall, just spoopy season, which is just all of October.
We are ready in this house. We have an inflatable ghosty. We have an inflatable little witch. We have an inflatable spider. We have more fake spiders. We now have a pumpkin on the front porch. We have Count Micula. We've got fall-themed Minnie. We have so many. We have a Jawa holding a pumpkin.
You say you have a ghost and a witch. They're like adorable ghost and witch. Like they're smiling and have like rosy cheeks.
I said a ghosty.
Ghosty,
I believe.
okay.
Ghosty.
I don't think they want to have like super brutal, realistic like Halloween props going on when they got a sweet, sweet baby in the house.
Yeah.
like dismembered limbs and you know, skeletal torsos or anything, unfortunately.
Charlie used to really be into that kind of thing. Maybe not dismembered torsos, but if you remember last year, our Halloween buddies, we call them our buddies.
Yeah, I remember those buddies.
Our Halloween buddies last year included a very adorable little Dracula. So that was cute. It was like a little sparkly Dracula doll that was like her size. Or like stand up, not doll, but like front porch kind of thing. And then the other was a little teeny Jason.
With a knife.
Bloody knife.
He was covered in blood, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he was
cute.
covered in blood and he was holding a knife and she loved him. She'd say, my buddy. And she'd mooch him and carry him around. And we had this really weird game we played for a while where Jason was saving Dracula from...
I remember this game.
I don't even remember what the...
Was it Darth Vader?
I think it was from Darth Vader. You're right. Jason was saving Dracula from Darth Vader, and she was helping wearing her Superman cape. It was very confusing.
Of course.
I would watch the heck out of that movie.
Speaking of movies...
Hey!
Oh.
Look who's transitioned are winning today.
We're going to talk about scary movies.
I just pitched that and you hit it out of the park.
I have been lax so far this Halloween season. I have not watched a scary movie yet, and I feel
I've only watched one.
I never stop watching scary movies, so this is just when I am not the weirdest person for like a month.
Taylor's in a constant state of watching a scary movie. She just pauses it when she goes to work, comes back, restarts it.
That's way closer to true than you think.
We are all, I think it's fair to say, we're all fans of scary movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Taylor probably the most so.
Yes.
Because I will admit, I do have I can't watch, we talked about this last time, I can't watch scary movies too late at night. And sometimes I have to take a break because they really get it in my head. They bury deep down into my psyche. And thank you, Exorcism of Emily Rose. And then I have nightmares about it for several weeks. And so I have to take a break. But generally, we all enjoy them.
See, that all happens to me too. I just don't stop. I just live in a constant paranoid, scared state. Keep feeding it with more movies.
That fuels your art.
This goes back to childhood, actually. Do you remember our uncle showed us Hellraiser when we were very young?
Mm-hmm.
And that was when we were staying at his house, and there were two beds. One had a blue bedspread, one had a red bedspread. And have I told this story before? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't think you have. I know this story well. I'm the villain of this tale.
You are, because there's that scene where the guy gets pulled in through the bloody bed. And so we were both terrified of sleeping on the one with the red bedspread. So Sydnee pretended to be sick. I think you made yourself vomit specifically so you could sleep on the blue bed because it was closer to the door. And you said, well, Mom needs to hear me because I'm sick. So I did not sleep on that bed. I slept under.
Don't punish me for being clever.
Now, Sydnee, you were 3 years older than Taylor. How old was poor little Tay at this point?
I was like 6 or 7 in this story. I was not of the age to watch Hellraiser.
Well, neither of us were, to be fair.
Fair.
She was young, but I was teaching her. She was learning quickly from the master.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's when I had the thought process. Well, if you sleep under the bed, then there's nowhere for the monsters to come from.
I guess it's pretty fair.
Well,
That's solid kid logic.
It's the same logic why so many nights I remember sleeping with my head under the covers as if like the monster was going to come in the room and go, well, I guess nobody's here.
Or like you pull your feet up from the bottom of the bed because it's like, well, they're going to reach for my feet. And when there aren't feet there, they're going to just not go that extra, like, you know, a couple inches to get any other part of me.
That actually leads me to one of the first scary movies I remember seeing that like we watched scary movies, at least Taylor and I did. I don't know if we traumatized you this way, Rileigh. Maybe we did.
The first scary movie I remember watching was like 4 years ago, so no.
Okay, well, I remember us watching Puppet Master.
Oh, that movie.
When we were, good. I don't even know how little. We were too young, too young. And there was a scene, and I don't remember which. There have been so many. Rileigh, have you ever seen any of the Puppet Master movies?
No.
It's about a bunch of puppets that come to life and murder people.
What?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Murder puppets.
And they're specifically like designed to murder puppets as well. Like there is one puppet who has a drill for a head.
I hate it. I hate it already.
And there's a scene where the drill head puppet goes and like there's a guy laying there in bed on his back asleep, and the puppet climbs up on his face, sticks his little drill head right in the middle of his forehead and drills a hole in the guy's forehead. And then they're screaming in blood and whatnot. That scene haunted me. That is actually for a long time I could not sleep on my back, as if like if I sleep on my side or my stomach, then the puppet will have to manipulate itself into a position to get its drill into my forehead that will not be comfortable for the puppet, and so it will probably move on and murder someone else.
Yeah.
That's logical.
Solid
right?
kid logic.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like when you get really hot at night, so you stick one of your legs out from under the covers, and you're like, wait, no, monster's going to get me if my foot's out from under the covers. Gotta put it back.
Gotta put that back so it doesn't get eaten.
What these monsters are that only eat exposed limbs. I don't want any blanket in my child.
There's a very carefully crafted monster code that monsters follow when you're a child, and that is the only thing that keeps you like sleeping in your bed at night. So it's important to know the monster code.
Well, this leads into the broader discussion of horror movies, because horror movies follow a code, and you know it just continues the idea like you follow the rules, you don't get killed.
Exactly. And that very much does involve like, you know, hiding sometimes in closets or under beds or whatever, and then like the scary thing doesn't notice you there and you're okay. So I mean, I think that follows.
I've kind of evolved from my monster fears, from not being able to stick my leg out from over the blanket to having to close my curtains, which like this isn't even like a monster thing. This is just like I don't even know why this scares me so much, but I have to I take my curtains down from the old ties, and then I step back once they're down and make sure there are no holes anywhere to where you can't see outside at all, because it's worse when there's just a small enough hole where you could see like one eye through it if there was someone outside of your window than it is when the entire window is open.
Now, you realize someone would have to be levitating to look
I
through
mean,
your
like
window.
they have to climb up like 9 feet to look through my window. It is not on ground level whatsoever.
Which, now, to be fair, would make it much scarier were you to see a single eye at your window.
Right. That's what my thinking is.
I always remember that scene from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie. Do you remember that in the movie when the
Perry's friend
gets turned into a vampire and he sees him levitating outside his window?
Yeah.
So, Tay, do you remember your first scary movie?
I don't know if I remember my first. I mean, definitely seeing Hellraiser is one of the earliest, most like traumatizing memories. I do remember as a teenager, the first one of the movies that is really iconic of our generation, and when I first saw it, it scared the bejesus out of me, was Scream.
Yes.
Those first, that first sequence with Drew Barrymore, that first 15, 20-minute sequence just terrified me in a whole new way that I didn't know it could be scared.
It's really true. Now, Rileigh, have you seen the Scream movies?
Yeah. I don't know if I've seen all of them, but I know I've seen at least 2 of them.
And you saw the first one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The thing about the first one when it came out, and this is probably hard for you to envision looking back on it now, but when it first came out, you knew Drew Barrymore was in it because is she on the box?
Oh yeah, she's on the cover. She's on the
cover,
poster.
But she's only in it for 5 minutes.
Wait,
right?
Spoiler.
I didn't know that. Oh yeah. Let's say right now, if we start to discuss a movie that you haven't seen and want to see and don't want to know the ending of,
Which, like, okay,
we're gonna talk about it. Maybe
we're gonna talk about recent movies too, of course. But like, how long has Scream been out now? The original Scream. How long has that been out now?
The spoiler warning on Scream. You should have seen it by now.
It is
clearly, if you wanted to see Scream, you would have seen it by now.
Scream is expired. It is everywhere. Like, if you wanted to see Scream, it cannot any longer be one of those movies where you're like, man, I always wanted to see that and I just never got around to it. Like, no, you've had a long time. You had a chance to be around to it.
This is like that conversation from High Fidelity. But if you said, I haven't seen Scream yet, then clearly you intend to, but you must not want to anyway. In Scream, like Rileigh said, Drew Barrymore's in it for like 5 minutes. Well, you didn't know that going in.
Which, like,
No.
the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, so this is going to be our main character. Okay, nope, never mind.
Well,
He's dead.
And that was the scary thing about Scream, is that it made you feel very unsafe instantly, I think, because Drew Barrymore is and was a big star, and she's the big star, and oh, now she's dead.
Yeah.
There are no rules in this movie all of a sudden. And then we learn there are rules. They're very well defined rules. But we learn like right away, like, oh no, we're throwing that out because we just killed Drew Barrymore.
And the other thing that really it was, and we can definitely talk about this on into your generation, Rileigh. We were kind of discussing this beforehand, but the big scary movie killers before Scream they were quiet, and if they talked, it kind of made them less scary. Like, you know, Jason, Michael Myers, they were these big, you know, giants, and they were silent, and that was terrifying. And then you had, like, Freddy Krueger, who talked, but that made him likable and funny. Like, this is the first time we had a voice, and the voice, like, that was the scariest part for me. It took something as comforting as a telephone, which is, like, a way of communicating, and turned it into, like, part of the attack, which was very unnerving to me.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I saw that. I was wrong when I said my first Scream movie was about 4 years ago. It was actually a little bit longer, and it actually was Scream, and Mom made me watch it. And we saw it at a landline, and like right after I watched that movie, landline rang. And I forget where Mom was, maybe in the bathroom or something. I was like, not gonna answer that. No, it says it's Dad. It's not Dad. It's someone in the house. There's someone in here, and the call is coming from the inside the house.
There's also, if you answered the phone at our house, especially during my teenage years, there was a fair chance that someone may on the other end say, "Hello, Sydnee."
Yeah,
I was gonna say, like, how many prank calls did you get sharing a name with that main character? Constantly
did I get calls that started with "Hello, Sydnee." Like, everybody thought it was very funny. That didn't stop. Like that was after the movie came out, and then even in college, I remember somebody calling my dorm and did that for a while my roommate was gone. So it was me alone in my dorm getting terrifying phone calls, pretending. Yeah,
don't like that one bit.
That would never stop. Never gets old though, right? Haha. That's my name, main character of the movie. But it was interesting because, like, the Scream movies, like we mentioned, laid out this kind of series of rules for horror movies, and then also somewhat for, and this kind of brings, I mean, we talk about teenagers here on this show, so let's bring them up. Kind of brings it into focus for, like, teens in horror movies are not a new trope.
That's fair.
You know, we kind of already know that horror movies are used to tell, like, moralistic tales to scare you out of doing bad things.
Well, and specifically in the teen horror genre, like those movies they're almost like just, you know, built-in control systems for teenage behavior.
Exactly. So don't have sex, don't do drugs, don't get drunk.
Yep.
You certainly don't want to, I mean, they talk about, like, you don't want to say like, I'll be right back, which, I mean, is also implicit in, like, don't go somewhere by yourself.
Right.
Don't split up.
Don't split up. Don't go, you know, and
don't split up to cover more ground.
Broader than they talk about. Don't be sneaking around doing things your parents don't know about.
I feel like scary movies have evolved because, like, now when I watch scary movies, unless it is making fun of itself and is being ironic, like, if they do the typical thing, like the main characters split up, or, like, you know, they do something they're not supposed to be doing, or like hear a noise or voice so they follow it instead of running away. Like, I'm just, unless it's ironic, I'm just like, come on. Now it's been a while. Come on. But I feel like scary movies have evolved to the point to where they make fun of that almost. Kind of like they hear something or like someone suggests splitting up and they're like, are you crazy? That's like a typical horror movie cliche. Like, we're not splitting up. What are you talking about?
Well, and I think that had to happen because it was like the Scream movies were very self-aware in that they said, don't do these things.
Right.
But then all the characters in that did them. Like, they did all those things. Like, that they have very specific scenes of the character running up the stairs instead of out the front door.
Yeah,
and things like that.
And every time you see someone running, you know they're going to trip. Running from the killer, you know they're going to fall.
And the killer is going to walk towards them
very
slowly and
they
still
always
yet catch them.
Yeah. But for me, now, I don't watch as many scary movies as I do TV shows. And again, the TV shows I watch they're all focused on teens, really, now that I think about it, all the scary ones at least. And they all make fun of the classic horror movie, like, cliches. Like the Scream TV series, which, I mean, you all were talking about Scream being the classic movie of your era. There's a Scream TV series now on MTV that's all about, like, high school-age kids and a killer, of course. It's Scream movies. But like the first episode, Taylor and I were talking about this before we started. The whole first episode is one of the main characters talking about how you could never make a scary movie into a TV series, and it lists all of the reasons why you could never make a scary movie into a TV series.
Which I like that. That's a very specific, I think, callback.
Yeah, and it's
the Scream feel, like
right. Yeah, and it's a good TV series. Like, it does make a horror movie into a TV series and stretches it out over seasons. But I feel like with all scary TV series or even movie series where, like, the Halloween movies or the Scream movies where you have, like, 5 of them, it kind of gets to a point where you're like, all right, there's a killer. They caught him. Oh, no, they didn't catch him. He's back. He's killing more people. Or, like, there's a killer. They caught him. He's dead. But now there's someone taking his place.
But that was new.
Yeah.
When it started.
Yeah. And I was going to say, they also, if you're going to talk specifically about the Halloween series, they did try to do something different.
Yes, they did.
Went horribly wrong.
Halloween 1 and 2, excellent movies. Halloween 3.
Shall it not be
Halloween 5?
Halloween 3, kids buy masks that turn their heads into snakes and bugs.
Silver Shamrock.
That is the plot, folks. That is the plot.
Isn't there a Halloween movie that in the Halloween series that is about them going to the house where the original murders took place and like filming like a competition reality TV show or something? A reality TV show. And then there ends up to be an actual, like, Michael Myers, like, killing them.
I've seen them all. I know I have. Like, I saw H2O.
Yeah, that was the one I stopped at. That was the one where I was like, all right, now this
I saw the most recent one. What was the one where... I don't remember. I've seen Michael Myers versus Jason.
I have not seen that.
Michael Myers by Jason? I know Jason fought Freddy.
Oh, no. Jason fought Freddy, but Michael Myers showed up.
Was this a fanfic you wrote? Are you sure?
No, he's there somewhere. I don't know. Anyway, I've seen all the Halloween movies. They all get kind of fuzzy after the first few. Things got weird. Like Michael Myers, we knew he was like a force to be reckoned with. He was more than just human because you keep killing him and he keeps not dying.
Yeah.
But then it got into all the weird kind of like mythology behind it and spooky. I don't know, devil stuff. Everything got kind of weird after a while, and I didn't quite follow, like, so is he still just a dude or what?
Well, you all are talking about him, like, not being, like, a human because they keep trying to kill him and he doesn't die. I'm going to be honest. I guess I saw so few Halloween movies, or, like, I saw a reasonable amount of Halloween movies, but they just made so many. I didn't even know that.
Well, the premise is not that. The premise is that initially of the first Halloween is that he is a guy who, as a little kid, murdered his parents.
Right.
What?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, the opening scene.
After seeing them have sex, which is presumably why he's just so angry when teenagers have sex.
Yes, the opening scene is a little kid in a clown costume murdering.
Okay, no, I have seen that. Never mind.
People.
I have seen that.
Yeah, no, and then like he escapes from the psychiatric hospital where he has lived most of his life when he is like 22 or something like that. Anyway, he escapes and comes to kill Jamie Lee Curtis, who is his sister. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the original. So he is just a human, but
Right.
but the Michael Myers figure takes on something that is extra human after a while.
There's a whole explanation for it, which I don't know. I feel like in that situation, it's better to not know. And I kind of don't like it when they start trying to justify, like, well, because he's like a golem or something. There's like some archaic mythology behind this. It's like, no, just make him this big, scary dude in a creepy mask that won't die. That's enough.
Yeah.
You never had to push that. I mean, I get you wanted more movies, so giving the backstory is how you get the more movies, but I don't know.
Am I wrong, or am I thinking of another movie or did they make like a remake of a pre-Halloween movie about young Michael Myers or something? Am I thinking of
Maybe.
something
I don't
else where
know.
there was like, it was recent too, because I remember scenes from it and it was like modern, but all I remember is like a little boy in a Halloween costume and like he killed, they never showed his face, but like he killed like animals at first and then
I don't know what you're talking about.
I
Right?
don't know. I guess I'm thinking.
But it's okay though, because I made up a movie where Michael and Jason and Freddy all fight. So that's a cool movie though that I made up.
A movie that does exist is Jason X, where it's in outer space.
Wait, what?
I think this happens in film franchises. You just get to some point, like, just go to space. Go to space.
I don't know what else to do. Take him to outer space.
That's what they already do.
But and those movies all kind of fit together as like you've got the Halloween movies. Michael Myers kills teenagers who are having sex.
Yeah.
And then other stuff too, but initially that's it. You've got the Friday the 13th movies, where of course Jason hates all the camp counselors because they also are having sex. And then, I mean, I guess like the kids of Nightmare on Elm Street they're just kids.
No, they're teenagers too. Johnny Depp gets eeten by a bed.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're teenagers.
Spit back
but,
out
like,
his 18 million gallons of blood because Johnny Depp has so much blood in him.
But they are very much stories, as we've kind of referenced, to like scare you from doing bad things, and they are
Sleeping, terrible thing to do.
Well, I don't mean, that's what I said. I don't think Nightmare on Elm Street fits in there quite as well, but do you think like have movies moved past that much? Because when I think about like a modern scary movie that falls into that line, and I mentioned this before we started recording, but It Follows, which I know you haven't
I
seen.
haven't seen that one.
Rileigh, but it's very much the same idea. It is something like a thing that you get from having sex, and it follows you till it kills you, and then you pass it, but unless you pass it on to somebody else by having sex,
which is terrifying. I hate that already.
It has Riley's two least favorite things: sex and killing.
Yes,
but would that movie exist in a vacuum if it wasn't for the precedent set by movies prior? I still think that movie is informed and exists because of that trope. Like,
yes,
it's an exploration on it, but I think that movie is still meta. I think it's still referential to other horror movies, even if the characters don't seem to be self-aware.
Right.
Yeah, I've been sitting here thinking about recent Halloween movies or scary movies, and I feel like most of them are movies that either fall into the category of they're scary, but they mean something deeper than just being like a scary person that kills someone. Like the Babadook. I know, Sydney, you've seen that. Taylor, you've seen that, right?
Oh yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah,
that's a really beautiful movie. Which is weird because it is a horror movie, but it's a beautiful, touching movie.
It terrified me for the first 98% of it, and then the last like 10 minutes, you realize, oh, okay. Like you realize like the deeper hidden secret meaning behind this terrifying creature. But I feel like there are a lot of movies now that either are like that like make you think, while also just like making you pee your pants.
Yeah, and also lead to like maybe your husband picking up the other end of the baby monitor every time you're in the nursery and going ba ba duck, duck, over and over. He even taught Charlie how to say Baba Duck.
Yeah.
So
Oh, great.
you're on there.
Pretty good.
Duck, Baba Duck.
That must be terrifying to live with baby monitors because they're only an object of terror to me. Like that's all they represent, just used in horror movies for effect.
So far, she hasn't spoken to any like spirits on it.
Sydnee, you ever thought about how your baby was saying Baba Duck? Maybe she should have been saying Baby Duck.
What?
Good one, Rileigh.
I know, right?
Because it sounds like baby.
Yeah, just let
And
that
she's
one.
a baby.
Just throw that one back out into the pond.
Anyways, or they are something that could never have been made before this time period because they're focused on something that's either like a new topic or like idea, or they focus solely on the use of cell phones and laptops, like Unfriended, which if no one has Taylor, have you seen Unfriended?
Oh yeah, it's a great movie.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
I'm only asking because like I feel like all these scary movies Sydnee is the one who has made me watch. So she's been there.
In my endless watching of horror movies, I've come across most of these.
Yes. But it's all you all see it all through the screen of computer, right?
Yeah, it's people on
Like a Skype call.
like a Skype call. Like they're all on it
All
together
teenagers.
though.
Yeah, like on a group Skype call.
Is that okay? Let me ask you. By the way, is that a thing that teenagers do? Do you
No.
get because the way they all click on is like everybody get on the call. Like this is what we do now. It's evening
Yeah.
time. Everybody get
No.
on your Skype call.
No.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes I FaceTime with one of my friends, but I don't like
You
get
don't all
together
sit
a
around
group of guys
Skyping
and gals
with a
and
group. Okay.
Skype each other.
I don't know.
But it all takes place through like all you're looking at is her computer screen, right? Like you don't ever see anything outside of it.
No.
Well, until the very end. But
Right.
and it's like it's the anniversary of someone at their school who had committed suicide, right?
Yep.
Because of them, or
Well,
because
that's
of one
that's
of them.
what we uncover is that one of them is guilty.
Yeah, you don't know which one it is. And someone like hacks into their Skype call and then they all start dying in horrifying ways. And like they all start seeing from this new mystery person that's joining their Skype call like videos of the other people, which is even more horrifying. Like now that cell phones with cameras on them and laptops with cameras on them have been introduced into the world, all scary movies have used someone else taking pictures of you while you're not looking and sending them to you. Like, I don't know if you all have seen Hush on Netflix.
No.
But Taylor, have you seen that?
I actually haven't. I've been recommended that one.
It's really good. But it's about a deaf girl who lives in the woods by herself, and the way she realizes there's someone in her house, because of course she can't hear anything that's going on behind her, and she's like writing on her laptop. She starts getting texts from her phone number on her laptop, which are just pictures of her from behind, like at that minute, which is horrifying because then she turns around, her door's open, her phone's not on the counter anymore, but where's the person that was sending pictures of her? Who knows?
That's very scary.
It's awful.
You know what's interesting though is you say Unfriended, like it is representative of the time because it's using technology and you know a way of communicating,
Yeah.
and even the way like the filming and everything that it could not have existed back when Taylor and I were teenagers for sure. But I think the other weird thing about it is that it is kind of representative of a deeper message. All these people are in a group. They are with each other on a Skype call. They are connected, but at the same time, they are utterly alone.
Yeah.
Underlined by the fact that they are murdered. I mean, I think you could read into it something really powerful about the possibility of technology isolating us as much as it seems to be bringing us together.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I was funny, kind of, I guess, like the early aughts, like a lot of horror movies had this. As a big horror fan, it was a moment that always took me out of the movie where you had to figure out how to get rid of the cell phones. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you don't get cell service out here. Like, oh no, like the network's down. Like, there's always some ridiculous way to just, because it's like horror movie writers like, oh no, like cell phones would literally solve 99% of the problems in a horror movie. And so it's cool that like a new generation of writers have found a way to make these objects feel like false security and like utilized and there, and they should make give you a way out, but instead they're objects of the terror. Like that's that's kind of a good way of dealing with it.
It is really interesting because that was one of my theories why a TV series recently, which I think is not quite horror, but in that family of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Of things that are, there
So
are
good.
lots of scary moments. Where if you take something like that and put it back in
Before there were cell phones?
before there were cell phones,
Yeah.
then you don't even have to deal with any of those problems. It's like, how do we get around? Look, let's just set it all in the 80s. That's fine.
One problem I do have with Unfriended, I'm trying to think of others. I'm sure there are others. And maybe this is answered in Unfriended, but I've never understood, like, all these teens are in their house, and they obviously don't live by themselves because they're all still in high school, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're not living alone. And all of them live in a house, and it's hard for me to believe that every single one of them is at home alone the entire, like, hour and a half that they're on this Skype call. Like, could they not just walk out their door and be like, hey, Mom and Dad, there's some spooky stuff going down. I need some adult assistance.
It is interesting that a lot of these scary movies they have to exist in sort of like a Peanuts-like universe.
I was
Where
going to
there
say
are no
exactly.
adults.
Adults are only occasional vague noises in the
Yeah.
corner that someone that is addressing them, but most of the time they're not there.
Like, I feel like a lot of these movies that center around teens, like scary movies that center around teens, could be fixed if they just told an adult, like, listen, some bad stuff's going down.
I need an
Like,
adult.
I've never seen I Know What You Did Last Summer, but is it not just about someone blackmailing a group of teenagers
Yes.
and killing them?
But
Sort
yeah, I
of.
mean, they're blackmail. You know what? You know what they did last
they
summer,
killed
though.
someone. Okay, like, if
You know what they did
Right.
last summer. That's
Right.
important.
That
and
murder.
they actually came up with a good way to remove the adults from the equation in those movies, because if they would have told, they would have ruined
They
their
would have gotten in
futures.
trouble. I
Granted,
guess it's true.
Yeah, I mean, get in trouble or die with a hook. Like there's one of those that's worse.
Yeah.
But that definitely is true. That a lot of those movies do exist in this weird world where you just don't see adults. In Scream, there are very few parents. You know, like, definitely I Know What You Did Last Summer. Final Destination, it's like, death is stalking me, Mom and Dad. What do I do?
You also, I think you could make the case that some of that, especially when we go to the older movies, is kind of the hangover from that attitude, that very prominent, like, anti-establishment attitude that probably developed for the filmmakers, you know, from their era, from the generations of people who were making these movies, where, like, the don't trust anybody over 30 kind of attitude. That used to be a thing.
Yeah.
It used to be a saying. Where, like, adults aren't going to help you because adults are part of the problem. We have to figure a way through this situation, whether that be, you know, our current political environment, our climate change, our world, whatever, or this guy that's trying to murder us.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, we got to figure out our way together because we can't trust adults. I think you see some of that kind of pervading older horror movies.
Yeah.
And maybe that's starting to go away. Because I don't think, I mean, do you feel that way? Do you inherently not trust anybody who's older?
No, I really don't feel that way. I mean, like, I'm going to be honest, if I was on a group, like, Skype call with all my buds and one of them got killed by a ghost, like, and Mom and Dad were, like, 10 feet away, I wouldn't just be like, I'm going to handle this on my own. I am a cool, independent young woman. I can handle this all by myself. No, I'd be, like, running out of my room, screaming and crying, calling every person I know, running down the hill, going to Sydnee's house, calling my parents. Like, no part of me would just be like, I can handle this on my own. I am so strong. I don't need adults. I don't trust adults. Like, no.
Well,
What?
One movie that is very embracing the don't trust anyone over 30 then, and one of my favorites, Sid, do you remember Faculty?
Oh, yeah.
Which
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
I don't know if you remember, like, I recently rewatched that, and that's a great movie. It's by Robert Rodriguez directed it, which I never knew, and it has Jon Stewart as, like, a evil science teacher, which is great. But, I mean, definitely, like, you know, in that movie, the kids are on their own because basically all of the adults, all of the infrastructure of the city, like, anyone that has any power or you know, ability is evil.
Yeah.
It's a very anti-establishment in that movie.
Well, and I mean, and I'm sure part of that is what you kind of were talking about, Rileigh. Like, you have to find a way to kind of remove the adults from the equation too. Otherwise, there's like, it's just like cell phones.
Yeah.
There's like this automatic fix for the situation.
Yeah.
Just go get your parents.
The only fix that I've seen, like, a production do is like the Scream TV series. Again, I know I've brought it up already, but they like bring the adults into it. So like the teens are the main focus of this killer's like, killing, but they bring the adults into it. Like the teens tell the adults and they know what's going on, but the adults are also getting killed and they are like witnesses to it. So they bring them into it. So there's no way where you could be like, well, just tell somebody. Like, yeah, they have told somebody and he got killed. Like,
the killer rather, that cuts the final girl, so to speak, off in a really not a creative way, but once again a useful employment of the phone, because it's like, if you go to the police with this, I'm going to kill so and so, and the killer does follow through on that. So it's like the phone once again is just this controlling object, or anything that happens, she has to do certain things or like meet him certain places, or else he's going to kill somebody she cares about. It's very much allows that omnipotence that that the classic movie villains have had.
You mentioned The Final Girl, which is also a fine horror film. If you have not seen it, that is also an excellent, which calls out again kind of that like meta horror movie where you examine all horror movies through a different one. The idea that there usually is, I don't know, is this like woman power? There usually is like the final girl, the girl that gets to live, the girl, the Jamie Lee Curtis, the girl that gets to win and live at the end.
Well,
the good girl, the brave girl.
I think it's less I mean, if we look classically at the origins of that trope, and this is me kind of spitballing here, but don't you think it's a bit directing the moralistic tale towards a woman? It's like, young girls, if you do drugs and have sex and party, you will die. The woman that lives is the young virginal, didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. So maybe,
that's true.
Like, because I mean, let's be real. Like, if you're a dude in a horror movie, you're dead either way. Like,
yeah, that's true. The dudes don't get to make it.
The jock, the cool guy. Like, you all die.
Yeah. I feel like the lesson is far more pointedly directed at women. So the emergence of the final girl. Maybe now it's used in an empowering way. Like, definitely you can't say that, like, Jamie Lee Curtis is a weak lead or Neve Campbell, but, like, maybe the origin is a little bit not empowering.
No, I think you're right. I think the origin very much is the final girl is the virgin.
Yeah.
Which is gross.
Yeah, definitely. Makes me very
gross. As I say it, I think how gross that statement is.
I've been sitting here thinking about horror movie, like, cliches when it comes to, like, character-wise. Is there not always, typically a girl, I would say, but sometimes a guy, I guess, that you kind of hate at first, that's either mean to the main character, like mean to the final girl, or mean to everyone, and you kind of want them to die, but then either they do die and you feel bad because like something happens at the end where you're like, oh man, I hate that, or like they don't die and someone else dies instead of them, and you realize like when they start getting scared too that like they're not that mean of a person. Like, is there not always one of those in all horror movies?
A Cordelia.
Well, yeah, there you go. That's a good. Oh gosh, that's from Buffy.
I think there's always a best friend, and they almost always die. And I feel like the best friend is always kind of like the more cliche, the party girl, the like maybe the more popular one, the more outgoing one.
Right.
And I've often, and maybe I'd ask you girls, who would you be in a horror movie? Where do you see yourself? Because I unfortunately have a best friend that is way more straight-laced than me, so I know I'm going to be the spunky best friend that dies in the final reel. Like, that's just my lot in life.
See, I'm the opposite. I have a best friend that is the party girl.
So you're a final girl.
I think I might be a final girl.
I think you might be too.
I guess I'm the murderer.
No, so you might be the nerd that knows too much.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's always one of those that could probably think themselves out of the situation and everybody else, but no one listens to them, and they die before they can really be effective.
You're the Noah of this Scream TV series.
Yeah. Or the Randy.
I'm the Randy. I knew I was the Randy. Man, that sucks. One kind of genre of movies that I think started when we were younger, Tay, and it really has found its footing more recently. Well, not more recently, but since then, is like the found footage of horror movie, starting with like Blair Witch Project, which I did enjoy, except it was so shaky. It's so shaky. And I'm one of those people when I watch like home movies or found footage kind of stuff where it's really like it's filmed very shakily, I get really nauseous.
Yeah, some people got really sick for that. I loved it, but that movie really did. It was a game changer because it was the first really like relevant found footage film. But the advertising around that was excellently done. There was a special on, I believe it was the Sci-Fi Channel, a fake documentary about the history of the Bell Witch. And it played straight, like as if you just saw it on TV, it's like, oh, this is cool. And then this movie came out and they like hid all the actors, like had them, like they didn't do any press for it. It was totally presented as just the object of what it is. Once we got used to that believability went out the window, but that movie did kind of carry with it that mystique of like, is this real? Am I watching a supernatural snuff film? Like, what is this?
It did. I remember seeing the documentary and thinking like, oh wow, that's going to be crazy when it comes out, and like having a moment where I bought it before I went, wait a second,
Right.
I can't be right.
Now, whenever they say based on true events, a true story at the beginning of a movie, that's not always true, is it?
Well, I mean,
it's possible that it could be, but I wouldn't assume it's true.
Okay.
Well,
because those terrify me more than any other scary movie ever. And even though I know they're probably not true, like all the Paranormal Activity movies say based on a true story at the beginning. What's that movie? The Conjuring. Have you all seen The Conjuring?
I actually thought The Conjuring was based on a real life.
It is based on a true story, which makes it worse because the two like supernatural ghost hunters are real people. Like obviously not the actors, but those are real people that have that real doll and had this real experience.
And
like,
now I have that doll living in my home.
Yeah, now Sydnee has the haunted doll living in her house.
Well, a lot of those movies, what they're based on, I mean, like The Exorcist is based on real events, supposedly. I mean, and it is based on a real case study of a young boy who went through an exorcism and was supposedly possessed. But that's kind of more. It's like the couple in The Conjuring, like they have cases and they have, like a famous history as paranormal experts. And that's the basis, is their claims and, their stories. So,
yeah.
Is there evidence that there are like evil demons in a house?
Now, I mean, that's not like The Ring, which of course that's real, right?
I don't know what The Ring
Super
is.
real. What?
Yeah, The Ring, the Ring, the scary movie with The Ring, where there's the movie. If you watch it, you'll die 7 days later. Well, that's absolutely true. That movie's out there. Don't watch it.
It's not true, Sydney.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true.
No.
Oh yeah,
No.
don't watch that movie.
Sydney, this is like when we went to the Science Museum where they have bodies on display and you promised me that those weren't real people. I know now those were real people. You can't tell me that was definitely based on a true story and expect me to believe you now.
It seemed to freak you out, and it was such a cool thing.
You're a dirty, dirty liar who lies about science.
I also once told Taylor, I convinced Taylor that there was a difference between a pig and a pork.
Yeah, that happened. I'm not proud of that.
And it was how curly the tail was, is how you could tell the difference.
Also young. I was going to defend myself with youth, but I don't think I was that young. I think that I was well beyond the age that I should have known there was no difference. I did watch. The Ring was scary. The Ring was the original movie it's based off of, maybe more so,
Nightmares for days.
Yeah. And everybody watched the clock their 7th day, just like, 7 days, huh? Like, it just was in the back of your head. And obviously, Sydney and I lived through our 7 days. That being said, with as popular as that movie was, that's a big to-do list for that little girl. So maybe we just haven't. S is a low last name on the list. Like, maybe she just hasn't made it to us yet.
Maybe she's still coming.
Now, like, have you all watched American Horror Story ever?
Yes,
season?
we've watched some of it. I've
season.
watched some of it. Yeah.
I've watched
Taylor,
all of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know Taylor's watched all of it. That is another TV series, but it also does this new thing that a lot of TV series don't do, which is like a new storyline every season. So it's kind of like a movie that is broken up into pieces that you watch over the course of a few months.
Like a mini-series.
Yeah, it's a mini-series, but I mean...
There's a name for that.
But I mean, like, it doesn't do that thing where a lot of horror TV shows do, where, like, you get a killer and he dies, and then you get a new one that takes his place.
Right.
Or, like, he comes back somehow. Like, it ends it, and a lot of the time you're left with questions. But it also, like, is really good.
It is really good, and I love the changing settings, but they do all relate in various ways, which I
They
find
do.
really awesome. Like,
Which, like, of
Yeah.
course, after one season, you wouldn't know that. But then after, like, 5, you go back and the people tell you that, like, oh, yeah, this character is this character in this season. And then, like, in the last, I think it was maybe the last season, you see, like, the exact same setting from the first season in the last season.
Which is also, I think that you provide a good example of using horror movies and horror television in this case to tell stories
Yeah.
or to talk about like important topics,
Yeah.
controversial topics, and that kind of thing. I think you
Yeah.
see that through the different seasons
Yeah.
of American Horror Story.
And that's another one that confused a lot of people with this most recent season because it is a TV show within a TV show. Like,
Right.
American Horror Story is the TV show we are watching, but it is a fake TV show called My Roanoke Nightmare that the people in the TV show are pretending to be real people on. And that fake TV show is what is based on real events, which is what the fake real people are talking about. But it also freaked out literally everyone that watched it because at the beginning it says based on real events, and then you're like, what?
well, it's like one of
But
those
no.
fake
By everyone,
paranormal
you mean you.
investigations. Yeah.
No,
I don't think
I-
anyone was thinking like, whoa, wow, they went documentary with this season.
Oh
No,
goodness!
like, I knew that's what it was because when you realize after a minute you have like real person testimonials and an actor portrayal, that's the actual like scary stuff, is the portrayal by quote unquote actors, which are real actors being actors, I guess. I knew that's like not really based on true events, this fake TV show is. But then like I go to school the next day and people are like, do you see season of American Horror Stories based on true events? And I'm like, no.
Well, it's actually it isn't though. I
Well-
mean, it's based on the Roanoke colony that disappeared.
Right.
You know, the whole Crow
Which is like a
thing.
That's a
real-
true event. Yeah.
And
That is-
which is
yeah.
very clever because the writers behind American Horror Story said this season we have a true American Horror Story, which is very clever and
Wow.
also very true.
I don't think Kathy Bates is actually an evil ghost from like the 1700s.
Well, no.
Not that I've heard.
You know,
I've never met her, but
She's very talented.
I do think it again, like when we look at more recent movies too, you see that like very clearly using horror to dissect the horror genre or to talk about big issues. Like I was thinking of the movie The Cabin in the Woods,
Oh, that's a
which is totally like the meta horror movie to end all.
Confused me so bad.
leave it to Joss Whedon to just be like, just like blow it all open. Like, we're just gonna come up with clever explanations for everything. We're gonna get this whole mythos behind why horror movies exist. Like, that movie is so much fun.
It's amazing. I think it's a lot of fun. Movies like that, and I think Detention, you would say, is that same way,
Oh, for sure.
which is a movie about like a teen slasher flick, right? I mean, like it's your classic teen slasher movie, except there's also time travel.
Why not?
And then it also has like that kind of that like sarcastic, like Juno-esque, like teen humor, I would say, like kind of, you know, I don't know. It's a really great evolution of the horror genre where there are moments where you are absolutely not scared.
Yeah.
There are times in that movie where you're like, this isn't a horror movie. But it's cool. It's a neat play on the horror movie. I think Cabin Fever is the same way.
Cabin Fever is one of my all-time favorites, but I would say for me, Cabin Fever hits that what I like to call the Raimi sweet spot, and it's in reference to, obviously, Sam Raimi did Evil Dead, and there's Evil Dead 1, Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness. All-time favorite like horror movie trilogy for me, but my favorite's the second one, because whereas the first one maybe is trying to be completely serious, but there's so much that's so goofy that you kind of gotta laugh at it. You're just not sure if you're supposed to. And Army of Darkness, clearly supposed to be goofy, not scary at all. There's that Evil Dead 2, like, there are moments that are genuinely disturbing, and then there's so much, like, well-written dark humor and stuff that just you're supposed to laugh at. And that's where my favorite kind of movie lives. And Cabin Fever is just so truly disturbing, but also so truly ridiculous and hilarious. Like,
I think Trick or Treat would fall in there too.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I think
Yeah.
Trick or Treat would fall into that sweet spot, and that's one of my favorites as
Yeah.
well. It's a good, like, funny, scary, different little vignettes that tie together, and a really good, really well done Halloween movie.
Have either of you seen Pontypool?
No.
Oh.
I never did I? We almost watched it like 10 times.
That's another one I would throw in there, and I don't want to give anything away. Everybody should see it, but the I think because we have more like it's kind of like we were talking about cartoons, how because we had a generation of kids that grew up with better cartoons, they went forward and made even better, more creative cartoons, which is what we're having the boom of now. I think a similar thing happened in horror movies. And it's like the idea, it's not just some big dude in a mask killing people. Like that idea, it's like, if we're going to do that, we're going to do it in a new way, a funny way, a creative way. But there's also just so many ideas in horror, like what can be your villain. And that movie has such an interesting idea at its core. But then, I mean, so did Cabin Fever. Necrotizing fasciitis is your bad guy. Like, that's awesome.
That's also why. That and the inclusion of Ryder Strong are why it's one of my favorite movies.
And that weird sequence where the kid with the mullet just, like, does karate and screams, pancakes! That's just my favorite scene in any movie ever.
You know, sisters, as we've been talking about this, I have never thought about how many scary movies, basically all scary movies, are based on teenagers. Like, I am at the prime age right now where if I'm going to be killed by any mass serial killer, it's going to be now. If I'm going to be trapped in a cabin in the woods with a bunch of, like, scary movie mythical creatures living below me, it's going to be now.
It really is true that, and I don't know if that's because you can't make a scary movie very easily, I think, with little children because
no, that's awful.
That's against the rules.
Nobody wants to see that. That's not
unless
fun.
the bad person is a little person, which is even more terrifying than the bad person is an adult.
Evil 5-year-old killing other like cool 5-year-olds. I don't want to see that movie.
No.
Don't make that movie. No one.
No, but if it's like a Chucky scenario, that's pretty scary.
That's what I was thinking.
But if they're adults, I think that it depends on how you use the adults. Like you can kill off adults, but then in some situations, like some of the scary movies, it just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
I don't know, because adults have too much power and responsibility, and so like they can't get into some of the fun situations, or I don't know.
Well, I think that's exactly right. I think that a teenager is the ideal horror movie victim because first off, you guys have that, invulnerable syndrome. Like, you don't think anything can kill you. You're kind of at the peak of your youth. I mean, it's kind of like, and you might not react in the most intelligent ways all the time. Your emotions are far more intense. Like,
well, that's because our frontal lobe isn't fully developed yet. And that's the center of your brain that makes decisions. And we can't make very good decisions yet because we don't have a fully formed brain.
See, I thought it's that you hadn't died inside. But if that's what it is, that makes me feel better about being more rational.
Doesn't fully develop until you're 21.
That's a joke.
No, but that really is a good point. And that also plays into like when you think about supernatural horror movies, where the idea is that like teenagers are more like they're more in touch because they're so in hormonal like torture, and the tumult of their hormones and everything makes them vulnerable to sort of spiritual attacks and
And we're also kind of at that
snatching scenarios.
We're kind of at that age where like
poltergeist.
If something bad starts happening, we're like it's paranormal. We're like, oh come on, ghosts aren't real, demons aren't real. Come on, this isn't real. But then like if we tell an adult about it and we realize it is real, they're like, oh come on, this isn't real. Like no one believes us, but we don't believe it either.
So I think you've already mentioned your favorite scary movies, Taylor.
Yeah,
The Evil Dead.
I mean, definitely the Evil Dead series. Classically, one of the only movies to ever really horrify me is The Exorcist, and I don't know who can watch that movie and not just feel like they've doomed themselves to possession.
I really do feel that way about The Exorcist. It will always stick out in my mind as one of the scariest movies ever. And I don't know if part of that is your like our upbringing or our religious background, if that's part of why that plays on my psyche so strongly. Because I mentioned before, the other movie that did that to me was The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which to this day, I occasionally have nightmares about that movie. It really stuck in my head.
Yeah.
And don't you think that in that sense, those movies kind of go against the one center rule of horror movies? Because the victim is an innocent young girl. Like, Maybe that's
true.
why, as a good girl, maybe that's why those movies are so scary.
That's
like
why
you're
it's so
safe from
upsetting.
all the serial killers, but those demons.
But
Prime
I'll
meat.
take a detention or a trick or treat or a cabin fever over those
Those are
movies
your
any
favorite?
day. Yeah, I mean those kinds of movies or Cabin in the Woods. I don't know. I'd have to sit down and really analyze to pick the best of those. But like something that's a little more fun.
Yeah.
Perhaps Idle Hands. Have you?
There you go.
Zombie Seth Green. That's all I
No.
can say.
The Babadook is a really good movie, guys.
It is. It's an excellent
that
film.
might
It
be
is.
my favorite. Like, it is really good. I've rewatched it a few times because the first time I watched it, I didn't really watch it for the movie, like the meaning behind the movie. I just watched it like and closed my eyes half the time because it was awful and horrifying. But then you rewatch it a few times and you're past the terrifying parts because you know when they're going to be. And you can watch it for the deeper meaning.
I think that's a good answer.
Yeah.
Rileigh, since you're a teenager, I guess we need to give you advice to survive these years so that you don't get murdered.
Wait,
Right.
Yeah, so that
Yeah,
you
do
don't
we
fall
do that
victim
now?
to a horror film.
Do we do that now?
Well, I mean, I think we need to, like, but just as the horror movies tell you, don't do drugs, don't drink alcohol, don't have sex, don't go anywhere by yourself. Always
Okay.
let your parents know what's going on.
Okay.
Do we have any other rules for her?
But then if you do all that, you might get possessed. So, like, you gotta be
It's
like
really
a
take your
little-
pick. Do you want to get possessed or do you want to get killed by a serial killer?
Like, how can you be like just? I guess this is what it is. You gotta be crummy enough that a demon's gonna be like, nah. But then you've also got to surround yourself with people that are way worse than you, so they get killed off
I
first.
think I'm at that place.
That's
That's where I am.
You did it.
And if you have a group of friends who ever try to drag you off to anything that has been abandoned or is remote
Nope,
or
never,
is
nope.
chained off and you're not supposed to enter.
Nope. I
Just
will
no
never do that.
cabins
Never.
ever. Cabins are always bad. They always go to bad places. They always have demons in the basement or something. No cabins.
Yeah, and if somebody rolls up with a big old like van and everybody's hanging out in the back of it smoking weed, you
Don't
just
do it.
Don't get in.
Well, thank you, sisters, for giving me advice on how to survive serial killer attacks and demon possessions.
And can I say for our listeners, one movie we didn't mention that's not really a horror film, but it is the Halloween season, and I would be remiss not to tell you to watch Rocky Horror Picture Show
Please watch Rocky Horror Picture Show. Oh my
whenever
God.
you have the chance.
Oh, that's going to be my Halloween night. I was just talking to a buddy about going to a live show of it. Like, that's...
Yeah, and the new live one is
Yeah,
going to be out
on
this
TV.
month. So.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
very
but I would recommend if you're not into scary stuff. There you
It's
go.
a musical,
It's a
so.
treat. So
Yeah.
thank you, sisters, as always. I need to go watch scary movies.
I know. I really want to now.
Yeah, because that was so much fun. Thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you all so much for checking out what we're thinking about and talking about every week.
Great way of putting that. Sid.
Where is this going?
I don't know. I love you guys, and I just wanted to say it, and I got all choked
Basically,
up
what
and
Sydnee's
stumbled on
saying
my
is
words.
thank you for listening to our show.
Not only is the most eloquent, but it's heartfelt.
I believe it is eloquent.
Eloquent. Thank you to Maximum Fun for hosting our show. Check out MaximumFun.org for a lot of other wonderful podcasts that you will enjoy. You can join our Facebook page. It's Still Buffering on Facebook. We will let you in if you are not a robot. And you can tweet at us at StillBuff. You can email us at stillbuffering@MaximumFun.org. If you want a Jumbotron, which is a personal message from you to anyone out there in the world, we will do it for you. We will say it for you, or read it for you, or sing it for you, whatever
Sometimes
you prefer.
we'll sing it.
Sometimes we'll sing it even. And you can go to MaximumFun.org/Jumbotron and do that if you like. So check that out.
Yeah.
And thank you to the Novellas for our theme song, Baby You Change Your Mind.
This has been Still Buffering, a sister's guide to teens through the ages. I am Rileigh Smurl.
I'm Sydnee McElroy.
And I'm Taylor Smurl.
I am a teenager.
And I was too.
Hello, and welcome to Podphone. What type of podcast are you looking for?
You have chosen funny podcasts about bad movies.
Rated R. May we recommend The Flophouse.
Three friends talk about bad movies and make each other and you laugh.
Rated R. The Flophouse is playing at your ears.
If you download it right now or whenever.
Rated R. To purchase tickets to The Flophouse, you don't need to do that, just download it. The Flophouse, rated R. For nudity, I guess.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture. Artist owned.
Listener supported.